Hello there, welcome to the workshop. We have a crane and we're going to make some knives. Let's get to it. Right now what we're doing is drawing out a bar of steel, because I've got stock for cutting out a blade, which is called stock removal, but we're forging out the blade instead. So I've created a lot more work for myself. Have a look at that. Woo! We're moving. See how thin that tip is? Almost perfect shape, about up to here. Now we've got to work from here downwards, and then we're going to basically forge out the handle, forge out the rest of the blade, and we'll have a knife. up. Your camera's in front of your eyes. Right, we've got the blade shape completely nice and forged out, tip nice and thin. We've got a distilled taper, so it's thicker at the base, thinner at the top of the blade. Even thicknesses throughout the blade, back and front, side to side, whatever you want. Now we're going to start on the handle side of things. So the handle will start from around about there. We'll pull it out of this material here. Obviously you've got to squish all that down in there, and out comes the handle basically. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I don't need to explain it. Fucking hitting yourself in the head. Yeah. You can come back. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so far we forged out the blade, and we forged out the beginning of the handle, so about up to here. Now on the horn of the anvil, if that's focused on, we're going to forge out this little, I guess, recurve, hollow section of the handle. That just makes it a little bit more comfortable. And now we've got a nice thick butt, because everyone loves a nice thick butt. And that basically stops your hand slipping off the back of the knife. Okay, so we're just finalising getting the blade all nice and straight, because obviously when you're forging it, it wiggles around all over the chip shop. We've got the profile pretty much done, so we'll go ahead and cut it off at the handle around about there, somewhere, not sure. But we'll refer to the template, the chalk template on here, to do so, and get that straight, and then we'll go through 2 normalising cycles. Basically just get it really hot, let it cool down to room temperature. We'll keep the forge running because we'll just get it hot and then get it medium cold and then get it hot again, and then let it cool down completely, and then we'll be on to grinding. Okay, so we are done with the forging part of the knife making. We have the knife. As you can see, it's grey. That's something called oxidization. That's a scale, and basically it's just, don't know what it is, oxidized steel, and that some of that will just flick off with your fingernails, whatnot, but the rest of that will stay on there. That's going to be the finish on the cheeks of the blade, the flats of the blade, but we're going to clean it off on the handle, and obviously when we're grinding the bevel, that will all come off in the bevel, so you get a nice contrast between clean metal and oxidized steel. Now going to the drawing, we're going to place the forge blade on there. That's just straight off the forge. It's pretty close, I'd say. Pretty close. Quite happy with that. So I'm just going to make a couple marks on there to show me where to cut for the handle with the angle grinder. We'll just go like that, and then we'll take it to the belt grinder. As good as a belt grinder is, you can't get into every nook and cranny. So I've done that as best as I can for this little finger brake choil. Not sure the technical term, I'm just making it up. But at the moment it's a little bit jagged, a little bit square, a little bit jagged in there. So we're just gonna get some files, whack it in the leg vise and file away. Make sure that's nice and tight. Yeah, just whacked on some glue dicum, putting it in the forge because it's still a little bit warm. And this is basically a machinist's layout die. You can also use just like a permanent marker on there or whatever. But basically it's on there, thin coating, and it allows us to scratch out a little profile, because I'm not quite happy with how the handle's feeling in my hand. Bit too chunky in places, so we're just gonna thin it down. Chunky. Right now we're just rounding off the back of the spine, so there's no sharp 90-degree corners when you're cutting and holding it down. Maybe you've got like a butternut squash or something, you really got to force it through. Use your hand on the back of the knife. That just makes it so it's nice and comfortable when you're cutting through something difficult, because
unlike a bushcraft knife, you don't need the 90-degree spine to strike a flint and steel or anything like that. Because obviously, well, I mean, unless you're cooking out in the wilderness, but this is just made for inside. So bevel's done, spine rounded. Now we'll chuck it in the forge for heat treating. Just before we put the blade into the oil, which is down there, it's just some standard oil. You probably couldn't have seen where I pointed. Go down there. Thank you very much, Matthew. That's a can of oil. Quite a lot of oil in there. About 4 litres. We've got another piece of just mild steel in the fire, just a piece of scrap. So we've got to heat that up and then quench that in the oil. It's not going to harden because obviously it's mild steel, it doesn't have a high enough carbon content to harden, but that basically just warms up the oil and makes our blade quench a little bit faster. It just gives us a more solid and effective hardening what do you say? Hardening process, hardening quench, I suppose. Quench just ensures the blade's hard. Have a little look at that. Just going to check the blade for straightness, because quite often putting it through the hardening process, you get warps in the blade just from the grain structure of the material and whatnot. It puts a lot of stress on the blade, obviously, because it shrinks the molecules really quickly, which makes the blade hard. And yeah, luckily this one's come out nice and straight. No warps, no bananaing so far. And then we'll take it home, temper it after a quick little blowtorch over the spine of the blade. That just keeps it nice and soft, and then we'll re-temper it again in the oven at 200 degrees for about 2 hours.
Bash.
Now this is what I was talking about earlier. When I was filing inside here, you could hear it was nice and it was a dull sound. It sounded like it was cutting to someone who's got experience with files. Now if you hear this, this means it is hard as glass right now. If I drop this, it would shatter literally into multiple pieces because it is as hard as glass, near enough. So then we'll temper it down. It'll probably get around 65 Rockwell. That's quite a nice hardness for a kitchen knife. It's a little bit less tough. Well, yeah, less tough, more brittle than what we would do for a standard bushcrafting knife. But because it's not going under the stress, the batoning, the prying and everything like that of a bushcrafting knife, 65 is pretty nice. It'll keep a nice hard edge even when you're cutting on a plastic board or a bamboo board, whatever. Not that I recommend that, but yeah. See you next video.